Bob Chapman brings more than 4 decades of experience to his publication, The International Forecaster, a compendium of information on business, finance, economics, and social and political issues worldwide. And his ideas and analyses are exposed to over 10 million investors every week. It's a tremendous number of people. He's a former intelligence operator in U.S. Army counterintelligence. He has spoken at or given workshops to hundreds of conferences worldwide. He's been on radio, television, and he visits with us regularly. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the Global Freedom Report, Bob Chapman. How are you, Bob?
Well, I'm fine. It's great to be back. It was hard to reach you, but we got you.
Yeah, we did it all behind the scenes. Not the listeners moved. Didn't feel a thing. Hey, it's been about 6 or 7 weeks since you were last with us. Doesn't it seem like the political and economic landscapes in the world are changing at a faster and faster pace? It seems like a lot has happened in the last month and a half.
Well, you're right. The speed, because of communications, is incredible. But those communications give us a lot of opportunities because talk radio is reaching over the entire world, and the Internet is as well. And we're beating them at their own game, and they don't like that. And so I'm very happy to do what I'm doing and be a part of exposing these people for exactly what they are, and that's a criminal syndicate. As far as the action that's going on, we see, and we've just discussed this before in the program for the last couple of years, that Greece is probably going to very shortly go bankrupt. And there just isn't enough money to bail them out, never mind the other 5 countries that are in trouble. Yesterday, Moody's lowered the ratings on 2 of the major banks in Europe, 2 major banks in France, the same banks, Société Générale and Crédit Agricole. And the one that they left out was Paribas, which is owned by the Rothschild family. And 2 weeks ago, Lord Rothschild had to put money into Société Générale to keep it from collapsing. But they're both broke. And most of the banks in Europe and the United States and England are all broke. And so what's going to happen? Well, Greece will go under, and the next thing, Ireland and Portugal are going to say, we're not going to do this. We're going to go broke like they did, and that will be followed by Belgium, Spain, and Italy, and it'll be the end of the euro. How long will it take? I don't know. Anywhere between a month and 2 years.
Well, I see
that's
the thing.
The judgment as we go along.
When
but
we've sat there and we've had projections on how long we think things will take, but it seems like it's almost like one of those big displays at science museums where they have a ball that goes around and around, and it gets closer and closer to a central hole, and it goes faster and faster and then drops into the hole. And it seems like that's where we're at, where everything is taking a lot faster, a lot shorter time to happen than we would otherwise have thought. Is that my imagination?
No, that's reality. And that is a good comparison. And, there are those who think that the Eurozone and the European Union were deliberately set up for failure. I don't know that. But I want to tell you one thing. They sure made a mess out of it. And I wrote back during the time of the Maastricht Treaty, and I said that you can't make this thing work with 3% debt on GDP, that's public debt, because these countries, these peripheral countries we're talking about now, they just couldn't stop spending.
Bob, since we started with Europe, let's go a little further with that. What do you think is the economic significance of the recent German Supreme Court ruling that it is constitutional to essentially force Germans to pay bailouts to banks and finance other countries' debt? And especially, how do you expect that ruling and its consequences will affect the euro and the EU?
Well, first of all, I believe and so don't 500 major businessmen in Germany, that the decision by the Supreme Court in Karlsruhe was incorrect. And it was politically motivated because nobody wants to see the European Union and the euro fall apart. And
no,
so,
wait a moment. The courts,
they went, I think.
The courts politically motivated? No.
Absolutely. Just like our courts are.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Don't forget these people are appointed. But it doesn't make any difference. What they said was, yes, the German government through the Bundestag, which is the House of Representatives, can lend money to countries for any reason that they want. But the problem that has been encountered is they had 5 elections and they got one more on Sunday in Germany. These are local elections. And the people have said, we don't want to do that. We want to take our losses and we want out of here. And they can't go against the people. If they do, they'll lose political power. And so the German government, in fact, it could get quite violent. These people are really loaded for bear. And so my feeling is that they refuse to authorize more money. But if they do, they're liable to have a revolution in Germany. I mean, these people have had it. And I lived there a long time. I speak German, so I got a pretty good handle on it. Now, what they're doing right now is having the Bundesbank print money so they can bail out the German banks. And these are the same German banks that got us all in trouble in the first place, among others. And what they want to do is keep their system going. And how successful it will be with that, I don't know. Yesterday in France, the Moody's, they downgraded Société Générale and Banque Agricole. And what the outcome of that is going to be is that there's going to be a flight of funds from those banks, because essentially they're broke. And so aren't many other banks in Europe, including the Landbanks in Germany, which are savings and loan type banks. And so where is it all headed? I think once Greece defaults, and I went over this with people in Greece 2 years ago and told them what to do. Now they're being forced to do it. And they'll have a new drachma worth 50% of what the euro is. They will leave the Eurozone and the euro, of course. And they will also start cutting back voluntarily, and they won't be a responsibility any longer of the European of the Eurozone. And the money that they owe will all be defaulted on. If they don't do it that way, it isn't going to work, because if they only say, well, we'll honor 1/3 or 1/2 of the debt, they're crazy. And they'll be followed.
Yeah, but when that happens, Spain, Portugal, Ireland are all going to see it and put it together with what Iceland did, saying that, hey, we don't need you, we don't need your stinking badges. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're going to start to see the dominoes go down, I would think, in European states. We don't want to play.
You're absolutely correct, and that will happen. The time frame, I don't know. It's hard at the moment. I got to wait for Greece to get out first and then see what the fallout is. Now, how does it affect the United States? Well,
that was my next question. How does all this affect the depression, the ongoing depression in the United States?
Well, the money center banks in New York, 5 of them, they say that they have written credit default swaps for $75 billion. I don't believe them. They never tell the truth. I think it's double that. And those insurance policies, so to speak, were done with European banks to offset part of their losses if the losses occurred with the Greek paper. This is Greek paper only. And then you have money market funds in the United States, along with pension funds, with getting very low yields on their investments. And so they went into the bonds of the sick nations in Europe. And I figure between the two of them, they're probably on the hook for about $300 billion, the two groups. And so that's not going to sit well. And, you know, these banks in the United States, they're broke already. And so there's some bad stuff going on, and it's going to continue.
Do you think it will kick the U.S. depression, or if you want to really be generous and call it a recession or even a recovery, though I don't buy the R's, but if you want to, will it kick the U.S.'s economic situation like kicking a man while he's down kind of thing? Is it just going to put it into overdrive?
I think it is going to go into overdrive, but not fast. It'll probably be more slowly. And how long will it take? Maybe up to a couple of years. But they have in the pipeline now QE2 and Stimulus 2, which will be showing up next year, bringing us 25 to 30% inflation. And the QE3 and the stimulus that they're going to put into place starting this past June, they're already at it. They won't tell you that, but they are, as I can tell by the numbers. What they're going to do is continue to monetize, and that's going to create more inflation. And on top of that, what the Fed did was give $2 trillion in loans to the major banks who own the Fed. So I guess the banks called them up and said, Fed, we need $2 trillion. And so they issued them $2 trillion, no interest. Then they lent the $2 trillion back to the Fed at 2.5% interest. Nice work if you can get it. And now I see those funds are starting to leave the Fed. Now, if they do, and the banks lend them out, banks cut back lending to small and medium-sized companies by 30% over the past 2 years, maybe 3 years. And if they open that up and the money goes to those small and medium-sized businesses, they will create jobs, but that's monetization. That money's never been out in circulation. So if they do $500 billion, let's say, and unemployment drops from 22.6 to 21 or 20%, the flip side of that is that monetization, along with what the Fed's doing and what the government's doing, probably will take inflation 2 to 2.5 years from now into the realm of 50%, which is hyperinflation.
Oh, boy, 50% inflation. I can hardly wait. We have a caller. Kathy is calling in from Canada. Kathy, hi, welcome. You're on the air with Bob Chapman.
Oh, you know what, Brent? I wanted to call because all my life I've lived in Alberta. I'm in Canada. I'm in oil territory. I'm married into it, and most people that are around me are in it. And for 6 years now, China has been buying into what the state and the Daryl Hannahs, and that was a lousy show up at the White House for protesting. The tar sands. And they haven't been called the tar sands since 78. They've been described as oil sands.
So, Kathy, I don't want you to tell me a long story right now. We have a guest on the line, so if you have a comment, please get to it as quick as you can.
See that down there? And that project up in that north part of Alberta has been being bought out for 6 years now. And there are several Chinese oil partners, and whatever goes up for sale is being bought immediately. And I think people in the United States need to understand that pipelines that are going on are going to go two directions. They're either going to go to the West Coast or they're going to go into the middle of the United States. And there are many, many businessmen that are working on this.
Okay, so what's the overall point you're trying to make, Kathy?
My point is that this job situation that's going on, there are hundreds of thousands of jobs that are being held up between two philosophies. And one is the environment, which can be contained. I don't think any of these oil companies are just going to go out
Kathy,
there
I'm going to
and
have
do
to. I'm sorry,
stuff.
I'm going to have to cut you. I have to get back to my
whole
guest.
job situation
I hope you gave
in
enough information that he can give some kind of a comment on it. Bob, anything to say on the Chinese coming in, buying up on Canada, the whole thing that the caller was speaking about?
Well, they've been doing it, and they will try to continue to do it. I don't think it's a good idea for Canada, but they can do what they want. That's their business. As far as the pipelines are concerned from northern Alberta, yes, one will go to the west coast, one will go down to the United States, and the Chinese will probably end up owning them. And that's just the way it is, and there's nothing to be done about it if people want to sell.
But that brings in, and that lowers the standard of living right across the board in North America, correct?
Well, probably yes, because I think eventually you're going to get higher oil prices, and when that happens, you will get more inflation and less purchasing power.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so the reason I'm saying this at this point is, if we don't start to look at it as not a dirty thing, then we can contain what we have and work towards moving. Let's face the fact here that oil companies and people coming out of universities and the subsidies and this and that go on to those things, they own and they know what's coming out of universities, and they're buying the patents coming out on solar and wind, and they're putting them on stream. And so the on-stream thing that I'm saying to you
okay,
right now,
I want to stop here. Kathy, you're going on to too many different things. I'm out of time.
I know,
so
if we're talking...
I want to thank you for the call. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry to have to cut you off. It's just we are against the clock. Thank you, Kathy. Please call again at another time on another show. I do appreciate that. Thanks so much. And, Bob, I want to ask you, because I would be remiss if I didn't, what your thoughts are on commodities, and specifically in this case, gold, silver, and oil, all three of them, say by the end of the year.
Well, I think oil will stay in that $80, $90 range, and if there's problems in the Middle East, it'll go higher. Commodities will continue to go forward as long as we have inflation and into hyperinflation. The stocks of the oil companies, if the market goes down, they'll go down with them. They always do. As far as gold and silver are concerned, I expect by the end of February gold to be $3,000 to $3,200. I expect silver to be around $80. I expect that in the very short term, we'll see $2,000 to $2,200 on gold, and another attack at $50 on silver.
Now, normally, I've followed gold and silver for a long time, and I'm not an economist. I'm not some genius about the formulas that, you guys use to calculate these things, but I've noticed the patterns, and always, and it seems like everybody's been expecting some kind of drop back in gold and silver, and it hasn't happened. It went up to 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, came back into the 18s. Everyone's expecting it to go back to 17, 16. Why is that not happening this time when for so many years that seems to be the pattern? It goes up and drops back a little.
It's because the physical buyers are overwhelming the market. The U.S. government is trying to manipulate the market, which they have for years, and it's not working as well anymore. They don't have physical to throw into the market. They have to use derivatives, futures, and options to do it, and they only can do it for 3 or 4 days at a time, and it's over. And gold and silver are going to go higher. It's the only safe place to be. That's the gold and silver coins, bullion, and shares.
All right. Well, I mean this literally, folks. You can take that to the bank. Bob Chapman, I really, is there anything, we're just about out of time, but is there any key issue you wanted to address that we may have missed?
No, I think we covered them. Those are the most important things. And,
now, how do people subscribe to the International Forecast?
They can go to my site, which is theinternationalforecaster.com, theinternationalforecaster.com, or they can email me at Bob, B-O-B, at INTFORECASTER.com. That's Bob at intforecaster.com. You can get copies there. We will answer questions for everybody. And
now,
you can also get a report on gold and silver
toll-free
shares.
number. Is that still there?
What's that?
Last time you were on with me, there was a toll-free number people could call.
Right, yes, there is. I didn't know I was going to get that in. That number is
please.
877-479-8178. That's 877-479-8178. And they have a deal there where you can get a free one-year subscription, and the deal's terrific. Call them.
Fantastic. All right, Bob Chapman, I want to thank you so much for being with us. And, yeah, it was a little bit dicey. We weren't sure we were going to have you today. I'm so glad you made it. I know the listeners were glad. God bless you and continue your great work on behalf of everybody.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for listening. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Bob Chapman, www.theinternationalforecaster.com, and you can call for your free one-year subscription, 877-479-8178. 877-479-8178.